Moving on to our next keynote address, may I request Mr. Avinash Gupta, Managing Director and CEO, Dun & Bradstreet India, to come on stage and share with us some of his thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it a round of applause.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here. I was supposed to be here in the morning, so fortunately, I had a couple of things come up that side of town, so I'm here in the afternoon. So good afternoon. I didn't realize that we were running late, so I came in on time. So I'm glad I got to at least sit through some of the panels here, which were very insightful. So thank you. The other problem in having smart people work for you, Hitesh said, I don't want to be the person holding you up for lunch. So I'm the person now holding people up for lunch. So there's a real problem, right? So let me maybe talk a bit, and then we'll release the publication, do the awards, and then hopefully break for lunch as well. Is that okay? Fair bargain? You're happy to hang in here for a while? Good. So first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here. It's our inaugural edition of the ESG Leadership Summit 2023. I've only been in Dun & Bradstreet for like 2.5 years or so, but we have a couple of IPs in our armory. The one which we do for the SMEs, or the one which we do for top 500, which go back 25 years. So this is the first one. So it's a real pleasure to have you all here for the first one, and hopefully with your support, we can build this, make it a lot better, and a lot more insightful and useful for everybody as we go through. And I'll be very happy that I think Hitesh said kids 30 years later or whatever, that whoever comes into this job 25 years from now is able to stand up here and talk about ESG and all the bits which we learned over the last 25 years. So great, and thank you for that. In terms of, and partly why that happened now, I guess, is because we ourselves, although we've been very focused on ESG, we also kind of released our, and maybe some of the colleagues touched upon it, we've released our ESG scores and things we do around ESG. So, people talked about MSME. We're very focused on MSME and some of our products and offerings which help MSMEs get more credibility on ESG, and hence being able to export and do more business more. So we came out with all of that last year. So we have now ESG scores globally on something like, close to 75 million companies, which is a very large number. Globally, we have this concept of the DUNS number, just to give you a perspective. This DUNS number is on approximately 500 million companies globally. So that itself, across these 130 plus odd countries, which Dr. Arun touched upon, we have ESG scores on something like 75 million companies now. And in the Indian context, we have ESG scores on 1.5 million companies. So these are very large numbers. And we came out with all this last year after, I guess, we'd built our own platform, hired resources, built people globally. So maybe it's the right time to kind of talk about that. And particularly as an Indian, I also kind of represent Dun & Bradstreet on a number of other platforms. One of them is AmCham, which is the American Chamber. And we were talking about ESG the other day, and I said, it's a very proud moment actually that Ajay Banga, who some of us, I was in banking, I guess he'll become the World Bank president, which is really a top job, right, in the world. And the focus on World Bank is climate. It's really about saving the planet. And it's a really proud moment that, this Indian person who started out in St. Stephen's, Ahmedabad, Citibank, is becoming a World Bank president. So maybe for Indians, there is a lot of journey to be had on ESG. I mean, obviously, a lot of people talked about, the India's contribution to the whole piece. It's not that big, out of this, whatever, 38 gigatons or whatever of carbon which the world emits, India's is not that big. But clearly, the game is going to be made of, the world is going to be, I think in many ways, going to be made or broken with what 1.4 billion of us do in India, especially on the carbon side, the warming side. So I think very important for us to focus, and it's so good to hear that, some of the comments and things being talked about are very relevant from that perspective. So, the theme really is building a sustainable future, which I think all of you have touched upon. So I really won't really talk about a lot of that. Becoming core to the entire offering, I think that's again very important. I mean, even in companies like ourselves and all the companies we talk to, the ESG discussion, the ESG focus It's really front and center. And that obviously requires resources to be put into place, time to be put into place, effort to be put into place. The big thing which, and I don't know your name, sir, the comment which you made, better quality pays better. That I'm not too sure, right? I mean, all of us who do business in this AmCham committee also sits Geetika. Geetika is ex-Unilever. She's the CEO of Hershey's, very company very close to all of us who like chocolates, right? And she says that nobody is willing to pay for that, that better ESG wrapping which Hershey's does everywhere else in the world for chocolates. In India, nobody is willing to pay for that. So they use something else over here, which, which qualifies for standards here. And, in similar vein, my colleagues, I think all of us were looking at each other when you said better quality pays better. We believe that we do a better service as Dun & Bradstreet with better data, better insights, but we don't get that feedback from our clients. So I'd be very happy as an Indian that, when all of us are paying better for a better service. I think Hitesh made the connection about the autos industry. So I think each one of us, as I think Amit said, need to do a lot more charity possibly to kind of, get the focus really on that front. So those were some of the comments I had in terms of, I think Amit touched upon the BRSR and all of that, which is also a great step in the right direction. And hopefully, that whole journey will continue. I mean, clearly, so Hitesh and others painted the picture, clearly the need is there. I think all of us feel the need, the pressure to kind of do better on that front, do a lot more. And clearly, pressure helps in also focusing the mind and thinking of new things to do, finding better opportunities to do. And there maybe I can talk about two opportunities which my colleagues had pulled out, which companies have done. Maybe I'll give the overseas one first. This is a company which is a Finnish oil refiner, Neste. Neste is an oil refinery up in Finland, obviously a major carbon footprint, major carbon emitter. Neste collaborated with McDonald's to convert their cooking oil into renewable diesel. And then, and then that renewable diesel goes back to the guy who does the supply chain for McDonald's. So it's become a nice circular economy. You get the used oil, you convert it to diesel, and that diesel then goes into the guy who's doing all the running around for McDonald's on the supply chain side. So, I mean, great examples can be found, I think, if, there is human mankind typically works under pressure. And I guess, that moment has come where we need to focus and find unique solutions around it. The second example, which my colleagues have put down for me, is one from one of the nominations for the awards today, which is from Bharti Airtel. Now, Bharti Airtel, obviously, all of us know a lot better. Operates a large number of towers, obviously large carbon emission from running those towers in terms of diesel and all of that. But clearly, Bharti Airtel has worked tirelessly to reduce the carbon emissions by trying to make the towers diesel free and reduce the amount of diesel which they burn per quarter. So again, I think where there is a will, there is a way. Obviously, there is a price to be paid for it and there is an effort to be made for it. But these are, I think, from a business point of view, and there were a lot of comments, on questions on profits drives everything, business drives profit, shareholders want profit, all of us want a profit for ourselves. But I think at the same time, there are huge opportunities to make that profit if you are ahead of the pack and possibly, can capitalize on the opportunities which are there. So maybe moving my comments on into terms of some of the other research which Dun & Bradstreet themselves have done, either on their own or through other folks. One of the things which we did was we asked Forrester to do a study for us globally. And that was really around, looking at, what is the amount of collaboration, what really needs to be done by global corporates in terms of making this ESG journey a lot more fruitful. So out of that research came out that 77% of the companies said that sustainability teams, people like Chief Sustainability Officer, Chief Environment Officer, and people of that kind are the most important partners leading to the adoption of the ESG goals. And this is where the role of the corporate leader, I think somebody talked about starting at the top, and there really needs to be that drive from the top to make it happen, which I guess is happening generally now given the urgency of it, and hopefully long that may continue. I think I had some comments to share on MSME. MSME is something which is very close to our heart globally. One of our ethoses globally is to give MSME credibility, visibility, make them look better in terms of looking for capital, make them look better in terms of finding new clients, and things of that kind. And MSME is very important for us, right? So we've done a lot of time and spent a lot of time on MSMEs in terms of figuring out how our products can give them credibility. We've come out with this new product, which possibly you can talk to Preeta, who's sitting on the table up here, on, we've come out with some kind of solution. We have a solution for the MSME, which we call DUNS registered solution, which gives them a seal and a credibility. We come out with a very similar thing on the ESG side as well. So, and we've had the first client who put it up on their website yesterday. So it's all early days in terms of that. But these are MSMEs who can then use those products and look a lot more credible in terms of doing business with the global majors and get onto the global supply chain, which will really just strengthen that whole argument in terms of doing a lot more globally. So ESG, MSME is obviously very important. If you talk to anybody in the government, next week, I also co-chair the ASSOCHAM MSME committee. We have the MSME Day, which ASSOCHAM is actually doing a good job on that. I'll touch upon it, what we are releasing there along with the Minister, Narayan Rane. Everybody knows that, India cannot grow if the MSMEs do not export more. That's a given, right? Whatever be it, Arun says it's 35%, 40% of the exports of India are MSME. So I think the MSMEs are superbly important. And whatever we can help them on in terms of, giving them better access to finance, better access to markets, which we do through our products, but this ESG thing will be a multiplier effect from that perspective. So there was a lot of talk on SIDBI. Amit was also there talking about SIDBI. So on the lines of that, last year we started work along with SIDBI to build a sustainability perception index, SPECS as we call it. And it's really a green pulse indicator to track the awareness, willingness, implementation levels of MSMEs towards sustainability. Arun and team did the first work last quarter, abysmal score of 46, so which is not the place you want to be, but that's the nature. We knew that. That's the nature of the index. The idea is to show the progression from 46 to a much higher number. The interesting thing for me, and we release this index also next week in Delhi with the Minister and with the CMD of SIDBI, obviously. The interesting thing for me was that as part of this, SIDBI said, let's do a couple of road shows. And we're going to do many more of those, but we did 2 last year. First one was in Coimbatore, which was sometime in November or so. And SIDBI kind of does a good job because they have the ecosystem of MSMEs. So we had something like 300 MSMEs in the room. SIDBI also provides, I think, good catering, maybe the liquid type as well, so that helps get people in. So, but there were 300 MSMEs there, which I was really surprised. And both Ramanan, who's the CMD at SIDBI, and myself, our initial thoughts was, will these guys be that aware? And I was really surprised that 300 guys were very aware of sustainability and ESG. It was quite startling that, in the discussion later, how many of them have spent time reading up. I joke with Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti that, did you guys know he's the first certified MSME guy in India? Did anybody know that? Big clap for that. So over COVID, I came back to India. I met him just after first or second wave of COVID had got done. I had spent time wasting time over COVID. Mr. Haribhakti had spent 6-7 months studying for the course and giving the exam. And there's something like half a dozen people now, you were telling me, who've done the... so there's a long journey to be had. But what I was surprised was that the MSME guys in Coimbatore were well aware. Second one we did in Faridabad, which was just around Diwali. And again, there as well, I was really amazed. I mean, there the Faridabad guys, I think Hitesh touched upon it, I think somebody touched upon it. There the quality and the size of the MSMEs was slightly bigger, given the whole, the auto kind of thing, but very aware of it again. So that was heartening that, people are spending time on it. And we hope that in the work which we are doing on these indices and all of that will help in terms of getting the messages out. I touched upon, some of the things which we have in our armory to help you. It sounds all very scary, right? But there's a lot of help available, which I was a little surprised that people don't know. So at this AmCham meeting which we had, which is mostly large companies, large American companies, a lot of the guys came up to me after the thing and said, we had no idea that, that data is available, that there are tools available to capture this information, and things of that kind. So, just about everybody is looking and quite desperate for information and things to how to do this better. Sounds very scary, but, clearly there is a lot of help available. So, I mentioned about our scores, I mentioned about the tools we have to capture data, and help you really effectively in that business of just projecting yourselves better, or, managing your supply chain better. Somebody talked of the banks. I mean, interestingly, again, I did not know this till 18 months ago, SBI already has a certain score for ESG. So they give you 15 points if you have something on ESG, and really if you just write anything, they'll tick it, and they give you 15 points in terms of your credit score. So it's interesting that, people are already working on it and moving towards it, and I wish that journey really continues. Lots of research which we've done, which says that, people obviously struggle, as I said, with getting reliable data. And then even if they get data, it's not consistent, it's of poor quality. Again, as I mentioned, there is a lot more help available. People like ourselves have itself grown. That 75 million number I mentioned of ESG scores globally, and 1.5 was not 75 and 1.5 when we started. We ourselves have grown that. And we hope that we can have ESG scores and markers for a larger number as we go through. Arun already touched upon the country ratings, the 130 which we have done. And again, we hope that large corporates will use that as part of their benchmarking as they build out their global supply chains and businesses in India. So that brings me to the end, really. Firstly, in terms of, again, thank you for spending your time here. Sorry we are running a little late. It's the first one, so we also live and learn. And we like to kind of, do a couple of things just before lunch. One is obviously to unveil the report, our premier report, the ESG Champions of India, and obviously announce the winners of the ESG awards. We had 90 organizations which submitted applications for the award across around 260 ESG initiatives. And obviously, the tough task of looking through all those was done by Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, who was very much a mentor, and Jayanti Shukla, who is the CEO of United Way, who also we have a very close partnership, and of course, my colleague Hitesh. So I'm sure if there was any bias which Hitesh tried to do, Mr. Haribhakti and Jayanti would have made sure that it would have not been part of the system. So again, congratulate all the winners and who are featured and who will win in this premier publication. Thank you again for you to be here. We count on your support to make this a much bigger kind of purpose for all of us, both in our personal and corporate lives, as the journey continues. And I hope that we can do this again in a much bigger form next year. With participation and support from all of you. So thank you once again, and make sure, as I think Kaustav and my colleagues have been saying, make sure you plant your tree. We'll be very happy to plant a tree in all your names. We actually, as a company, we did this globally for all our employees. So whenever somebody does a good deed globally, they get a tree, and it's actually planted in Thane. So a lot of guys from the USA, where is Thane? So we've got a lat long as well and a GPS for it now. Good. So thank you again for your time. Much appreciate you being here. And should we then roll through? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. It's always insightful hearing you talk. And I'm sure the audience enjoyed as well, learning all of these perspectives from you.